There are a lot of deals I remember because they closed. There are a few deals I remember because they fell apart. And then there's that one client that I just couldn't save. This happened in 2024, and it was one of the first times I really got a crash course in how ugly things can get when debt, taxes, pride, and denial all collide. When I first met this client, the house itself wasn't the problem. That's the crazy part. The house was not trashed. It wasn't a burnt out disaster. It needed maybe $10,000 in deferred maintenance. It wasn't updated, but it was perfectly sellable. Families had lived there. It had good bones. It was the kind of house that, with a little work, somebody would have happily bought. The problem wasn't the house. The problem was everything attached to it. The owner was in his 50s, married, angry at the world, convinced he was one big break from solving everything. The numbers were ugly. He owed about $253,000 on the first mortgage, another $57,000 on the second mortgage, roughly $50,000 in back taxes. And those taxes hadn't become a problem last year. They had been a problem since 2012. Think about that. 12 years of back taxes. 12 years of kicking the can down the road. 12 years of believing there will be another month, another extension, another solution. When I started digging through everything, I was learning in real time. I was learning about second mortgages. I was learning about tax liens. I was learning about sheriff sales. I was learning that a house can look fine on the outside while being financially dead on the inside. Most people think foreclosures happen overnight. It doesn't. It's usually death by 1,000 cuts. One missed payment, one unpaid tax bill, one bad decision, then another, then another. Then, years later, you're standing in a house wondering how the hell it got so bad. What made this case different was that it wasn't hopeless. I actually had found a buyer, a real buyer. Not somebody lowballing, not an investor trying to steal it, a legitimate buyer that wanted the property. When I found them, I thought we had a chance. I remember thinking, we actually might pull this off. We could sell the property, stop the sheriff sale, stop the bleeding, maybe preserve some dignity, maybe preserve some money, maybe give this guy a chance to reset life. There was just one problem. The owner wouldn't let anyone inside. Not once, not twice, over and over. Showing request after showing request denied. Too tired, don't feel like it, didn't want to be bothered, embarrassed, sick, whatever the excuse was that week. After a while, the excuses stopped mattering because the outcome was always the same. No entry, no showing, no chance. Imagine being a buyer. You find a house you like, you want to see it, you ask, you get denied, you ask again, denied, again, denied. Eventually, people stop asking. And that's exactly what happened. I remember getting more frustrated with every request because I knew what was coming. The sheriff's sale date didn't care. The tax collector did not care. Liens don't care. Time was moving whether he wanted to or not. But he convinced himself something else was going to save him. He was involved in a disability claim, some sort of a lawsuit, and that was the miracle he was waiting for. The check, the payout, the settlement, the thing that was going to fix everything. And every conversation somehow came back to that. The money was coming, just a little longer. Just need a few more bucks. That's what I remember the most. Not the debt, not the taxes, not even the house. The constant belief that salvation was right around the corner. The problem with miracles is when you're waiting for one, you stop taking action. You stop solving problems because future you is going to solve them. You stop making decisions because the big check is coming. You stop facing reality because reality is uncomfortable. Meanwhile, reality keeps moving anyway. And as time went on, I started to realize something. This wasn't a real estate problem anymore. This was a human problem. I like being the hero, and a lot of agents do. We don't always admit it, but we do. We like solving problems. We like finding solutions. We like being the person who makes the impossible deals happen. And I kept thinking, if it worked a little harder, I made another call, I found another angle, maybe I could save this one. But I couldn't. The moment I knew it was over wasn't when the sheriff's sale happened. It wasn't when the buyer gave up. It wasn't when another showing got denied. It's when he left for Mexico. That's when I realized he mentally checked out. He wasn't going to save the house anymore. He was trying to escape the consequences. And about a month before the sheriff's sale, he loaded up a U-Haul and was out. I remember standing there talking to him after everything, after all the conversations, after all the attempts, after all the opportunities. He looked at me and smiled. I'll see you in Mexico. I remember thinking, this is ridiculous. Another bluff, another fantasy, another thing that wasn't really going to happen. Then he actually left. The house went to sheriff's sale, and when it was over, it sold for $220,000. The house was worth roughly $370,000. Gone. Just like that. And here's the part that still bothers me. People hear a story like this and assume there must have been no way out. There was. That's what makes it tragic. The house wasn't unsellable. The market wasn't terrible. There were buyers. There were options. There were exits. The rescue was sitting there, but the rescue required action. It required opening the front door, and that never happened. Later on, after he had gone to Mexico, he tried coming back. By then, it didn't matter. The house was gone. Locks had been changed. Decision had already been made. The opportunity had already passed. The thing about consequences is that they move slowly for years and then all at once. People think the sheriff's sale was the moment he lost the house. I don't. I think he lost the house long before that. I think he lost the house one excuse at a time, one delay at a time, one denied showing at a time, 1 year of unpaid taxes at a time. By the time the sheriff's sale happened, the ending had already been written. The client taught me something that I still carry with me today. Not every client is savable. Some people are, some people listen, some people take action. Some people face reality and fight their way out. Some people are waiting for a miracle. And if they're committed to waiting for that miracle, then there's nothing a realtor, attorney, friend, or family member can truly do. You can throw them a rope, or you can throw them 10 ropes. But eventually you realize they ain't trying to climb out. They're waiting for someone to drain the water. And sometimes that never happens. I'll never forget that client. Not because of the money, not because of the deal, not because of the commission. I'll remember him because he was the first person who taught me that effort and outcome are not the same thing. You can do everything right. You can find the buyer, you can find the solution, and you can work harder than everyone else involved and still lose. Because in the end, the one person who had to save that house was the owner, and he never opened the door.